Hello and welcome to the Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. I'm your host, Dr. David Hardy. And today on our show, we've got another amazing guest. He is a communication expert, keynote speaker, and a coach. Welcome to the show, Salvatore Manzi. How you doing there?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's great to be on here with you.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Like you've done, a couple decades of work with biotech companies, insurance, healthcare. You've even, geez, the likes of LinkedIn, Airbnb, like Blue Shield, Twitter, Dropbox.
I
You
have,
a
I
ton-
have been in all of the different organizations, the big boxes, the big corporates. It's sort of funny. We were comparing, my colleagues and I were comparing the cafeterias and all these. Like, it does. Which one's better, Airbnb or LinkedIn? It's LinkedIn, man. Their chef is amazing, but we're a little off
Oh,
topic here. Yeah, I've been in.
nice.
Like I started in the San Francisco Bay Area, so
Oh,
worked
okay.
at all of the tech firms, and then got into Genentech, the biotech, and then started working more globally. And yeah, it's after 20 years, I've been in just about every industry out there.
Wow. And all of this is kind of based in how do people present themselves and communicate, correct?
It's all about, at some point we all recognize that we make a living with our voice, right?
Right.
And there is an imminent payback for our focusing on developing our ability to present to other people, present our ideas, construct our viewpoints effectively in meetings. Like, if we want to have influence and impact, we have to find ways to make our ideas relevant to other people and make them memorable and sticky as well. So that's what I help people do.
Oh, fantastic. Now, some of these fields too, they're kind of more on the left brain side and analytical, a lot of data. Uh, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like Silicon Valley has had the nickname Autistic Valley sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I haven't heard that. Yeah.
so
I
all sorts of communication issues, I would
yeah.
imagine.
It's a variety. I am an analytical brain person myself, and I
Okay.
also self-identify more introverted than extroverted. And what I found as I took on communications, and my dad was a public speaker. I followed in his footsteps, didn't really crave the spotlight, but found people coming to me and asking, how did I get up on stage? How did I overcome my fear? How did I present myself? And started coaching people. And when I was in the Bay Area, I did find myself gravitating towards STEM professionals, engineers, scientists, analysts, data driven leaders who have to turn complexity into clarity. And I came up with frameworks around how to structure and organize our thoughts in a way that can land with our listeners. I came up with techniques that will help to use the body as a full method of delivery and communication, and then principles to help drive that emotional mental state that really it is what drives us to show up with presence and have impact and influence in the environments in which we're speaking. So I
Wow.
use those three pillars when I'm coaching.
And what are those three pillars again? Framework.
Content, which is frameworks for
Mhm.
organizing your content; delivery, which
Delivery.
are techniques for using your body, your voice, your eyes, your gestures, all of that. Research shows communication is multi-channel. And then presence. What are
Presence.
the beliefs, the history, the experiences that we have had that lead us to show up a certain way in different contexts? And how are they limiting or supporting us to be resourceful and show up as our full selves authentically in those environments?
Okay, so what are maybe a few examples of this, like for framework, delivery, and presence?
Yeah, for frameworks, the first thing to keep in mind, my number one framework is you, then me. If I can start any conversation, presentation, interaction, speaking to you, your beliefs, your perspective, your wants, your desires, before getting to my agenda, my ideas, I'm more likely to create a flow, a connection, and a receptivity towards whatever I have to share. So you, then me is a framework to always start. There's the idea that the mind is a meaning seeking machine, not a precision scene. And so I work with a lot of STEM professionals, a lot of data. I can give you a data download for days, but the brain isn't programmed to be a precision or recording device. It's designed to be a memory, a meaning making device. So if I can start with
Exactly.
you and then get to me, I've created that relevance. The brain can then start processing what I have to say. That's a from the category of the content. Getting into the delivery techniques,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
something to think about is that your body speaks before you do. When you go into a room, the posture, the cadence, the look on the expression on your face is sending a whole bunch of ideas, and it's helping your listeners form judgments about you before you even open your mouth to share whatever it is you have to speak. So being mindful of how I show up, using my body to create a presence is important. It's not just what we say, it's how we say it really that creates that influence for other people.
I love that. And on that point, have you found some people just seem a little just physically awkward? And then how do you kind of work with them in that state?
I would say everybody's a little physically awkward, right? Like,
Right.
and it depends on the context. Like the most focused and like die hard person with presence will get in front of this one person and then collapse, and they collapse on themselves, and they sort of go inside, and they make themselves small. And this is physiologically sending the body, sending the mind messages that
Oh,
I'm not
yes.
safe here. I can't show up as my full self. So if I in those moments where I feel awkward, I feel like I don't belong, I feel like I don't want to be here, if I force my body to expand and open
Open
up, if I
up.
bring my elbows away from my sides, if I take up space, it sends the message physiologically that I am safe and I can have presence. And from that place, it starts a feedback loop that will send me on a trajectory to be more effective in my communication in that moment.
I love it. Yeah, one of the things that the Hardy brain, and I'm really interested with functional neurology, of course, and that's my thing, is that a lot of it's physical. And it's kind of how the brain's wiring. So we look at that rewiring. And yeah, some of these drills can kind of do it on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of speaking communication is skill based too.
Mm.
So I love the combination of, okay, well, let's develop the skills, but also I think we need to sometimes rewind and go down to basics and, okay, well, how physically is the body sending those messages and firing, and getting people more comfortable in their own bodies is massive. Are there any like little stage techniques you've come across that really help that out as well? Then just to kind of get people into that zone before they're doing a presentation or talking.
Well, two things. Let's dive into the amygdala and the hijack, the fight,
Oh
flight
yeah, of
area,
course
because I
that
mean
goes
that's
haywire.
yeah, right. That's where we're
Yeah.
talking, and the technique that I would always start with is the breath.
Yes.
So let me ask you, like, what do you offer your clients in terms of like handling that amygdala hijack that comes?
Oh yeah, a lot of it is getting them into a different state, and physically, there's all sorts of things you can do, like little fidgeting stuff with your hands, and then of course just going for a walk, and like stress chemistry and that fear response. It's there to get us to move. So if we're already moving and doing something, then we're burning up some of those stress chemistry and chemicals that we're developing. But it also has that calming, soothing effect on the nervous system. The
Mm-hmm.
worst thing we can do, of course, is to go into that flexor posture where we're all tense and in a ball and then breathing differently. that shallow breathing that's gonna take away from or I should say spiral down even farther and fulfill that loop of fear
Yeah.
and not being trapped is another way to put it.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being trapped. And I like that you started with that the rush is meant to help us move. Like we get that rush of adrenaline, and it's meant to drive us to
Absolutely.
action. And if we're
Yes.
trying to sit there and contain it, like we'll explode. Like there's got to be a release. I've worked with a lot of clients who have to sit in a conference room and be like patient and wait for their turn to speak. And,
Yes.
the energy just keeps building the whole time until they finally speak and their voice cracks and they're like, so there are ways to release or channel that adrenaline. I call it reframe the rush. Reframe the rush. First of all, research shows that if you just simply say it's excitement versus nervousness, it changes the brain wiring and it'll help you like channel that adrenaline a little bit faster. Sort of like on a roller coaster. You go over that hill, you're either screaming with your arms up or you're laughing with your arms up, right? Either way, the frame that we put around that sense is going to drive how we interpret and then use that adrenaline rush. I also like what you said about like just getting into movement because oftentimes when I am coaching a client who's preparing for a big presentation, they're waiting backstage. What are you doing to release it? Right? Jane Goodall studied chimpanzees for years and noticed that when they get that initial spark of rush, they bring the shoulders up, the elbows up, and then throw it down. There's this sort of full body expansion of releasing that energy. If I'm backstage preparing, this is what I'm doing. I'm bringing my shoulders, my elbows out, and then throwing them down to release that excess energy. But if I'm sitting in a conference room, I'm not going to do that, obviously. So what I'll do is either tense the entire body and then release it, tense the entire body and then release it, or work with the breath. And I know that you know this, but I'll say it again for your listeners, it's not the inhale, it's the exhale.
Exhale. Absolutely. Yeah.
The exhale calms the body, and I offer box breathing as a way of regulating the system. Inhale for 4, hold for 5, exhale for 6, hold the exhale for 7. What that does, number one, by counting, it keeps the brain from
Occupied,
perseverating,
right?
right?
Yeah.
But the exhale is what collapses the chest. The smaller the chest cavity, the lighter the heartbeat will be. The larger the chest cavity, the harder the harder the heart has to beat. So when I'm exhaled and my chest is collapsed, the heart physiologically will calm down. So 3 box breaths before a big presentation or the time for you to speak will help to regulate your body.
I love it. Now we had a third pillar there. How does this all move into that?
Presence to me is where authenticity meets comfort. How do we get to that state of being comfortable being ourselves in any situation? It takes practice. It takes a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness of what are my triggers, what are the beliefs that come up in different situations. But a tool that you can use is 5% slower. Chris Hughes, a behavioral scientist, offers the idea that composure conveys confidence and that moving 5% slower than the rest of the room intentionally will convey a sense of confidence and will help you self-regulate. I would offer not just moving 5% slower, but speaking 5% slower. And I'm not talking about bringing less energy. Still need to bring a full facial expression, still need to bring a full posture and movement. But moving 5% slower, speaking 5% slower helps to create a natural presence, self-regulation loop that tells yourself that I belong here. I'm in control. I'm being intentional about what I'm sharing. And in doing that, you create a sense of presence in the room that will convey confidence about what you're speaking.
Fantastic. Now, people going through this process, there's probably quite a bit of pain or discomfort at the start of this. But how much pain do you think poor communication is actually causing people?
Oh my
That
gosh.
if they concentrated on some of these techniques and skills, what would be the outcome?
A lot of my clients come to me when they experience the pain of being looked over, passed over for a promotion, or their project doesn't get the budget, or their startup doesn't get the funding. They come to me to look at what is my communication doing that's costing me these opportunities. And simply devoting oneself to becoming more intentional about the framework that we're using when we're speaking, making sure that it actually connects with our audience, the techniques that we're using to deliver the message, and then the presence that we're conveying in those meetings will help us go from struggling to thriving. I had a couple of investors who were seeking to raise a capital fund, and they had a lot of challenges in communicating their story and the story of what they are hoping to convey. And we worked together for about 6 weeks. They went out, launched their pitches, and they raised $220 million, which was $100 million
Whoa.
goal. And that is the possibility when we put intentionality behind the way we're speaking and the way we're connecting with our listeners as we're speaking.
Wow. Now, some people will think too that they've got to be somewhat entertaining.
Hmm.
And because, yeah, like the top speakers, they draw you in and all that presence, that it factor. But on top of that, they change your emotionality throughout their presentation. Like one minute they've got you laughing, and oh, laughter is so powerful.
It,
And then the next they've got you engaged in somehow, and they switch this up. Um, but humor is probably very difficult for a lot of people because it's so subjective. Now,
it,
when giving a presentation or anything, how do you inject humor into this?
uh,
What are some tricks or theories or structure for that one?
I wish I had a magic wand that could make anybody entertaining and
Funny, right? Oh, I want to
right.
be funny.
I want to be funny. I want to make people laugh. There is a desire to be entertaining, but there's a point where content matters more than the entertaining. Unless you are an entertainer or a performer of some sort, then you want to maintain that entertaining. But to infuse that humor into one's talk, it requires being authentic, number one, finding your authentic voice and letting your authentic self come out. What I find with a lot of STEM professionals is they will use state the obvious as a form of humor, like
Ah,
calling
okay.
out something in the room or something that has been said just on its nose, just like naming it can create a spark of humor in the room. Like, oh, I'm glad somebody said it. Like, oh, there's the state the obvious kind of thing. But humor is often found in misdirection. I took a stand up
Hmm.
class. Um,
Okay.
as an introvert, I was like, let's do the most awkward and uncomfortable thing possible. So I took a
Right.
stand-up comedy class, and it was like my entire body was set on fire when I got up on the stage to make people laugh. But humor is really just based in misdirection. There's a setup, and then there's a misdirection where I go somewhere that you didn't expect me to go. So infuse that if you want to. Try improv, try stand up, learn the tools to become a funnier person. But I would caution a little bit in the sense that, you know, I think of great speakers. I think of like Obama. I think of like Simon Sinek. And those leaders have something that causes you to lean in, but it's not entertaining.
No, it's not humor.
They have presence, right?
Yes.
To
Yeah.
your point, that people want to go on an emotional ride. People don't want static emotion the whole time and all this. They want to be taken on an emotional journey. You can convey that with your voice. changing the tone of voice, speeding it up and slowing it down, dropping a pause in there in the wrong place. It creates that tension in the emotion. But with the content itself, there is a desire to bring in hope, and there is a desire to bring in concern. When I take my listener on a emotional roller coaster, they're going to be more engaged in what I'm speaking about. Emotion precedes cognition. You've heard the amygdala studies, the Wayland
Oh,
studies,
absolutely. Yep.
right? Creating that emotional arc is going to create more of a thoughtful response and a more memorable engagement with your audience.
Yeah. And you're right on all of that. And what people miss too is that first off is before emotion is seeing and processing the the environment. And then there's an emotional response.
Say more
And
about
then
that.
you can go logically. So it's kind of the order of the brain and how things just get processed through there. Um, Now, another topic, though, excited to hear more about is it's almost a buzzword out there, and that's storytelling.
Yeah.
How does this fit into it? Because Obama's not really telling a story, or is he? Or Simon Sinek, well, he takes you on a journey, but is that a story?
The journey is important, but I would offer this: metaphors move minds. We can only absorb so much empirical data before we need something visual or emotional to actually lock it into place to help to understand it, right? If I were to hand you a blueprint and go, here you go, it's not the same as if I showed you the house with the tree blowing in the front and the plants growing. There's a need for our brains to have a visual emotional component to lock in whatever the data is. So metaphors move minds. And what I would offer is some of the greatest speakers don't always speak in stories. They'll add brushstrokes. You know, I I got passed the other day on the road by this speeder. That, okay, doesn't convey much. It's data. You understand it. But if I said, I got passed the other day on the highway by a red Ferrari doing at least 180 miles an hour in a 45. Now, those little details, it adds specificity, it colors it in, and you can feel a little of emotional rush by the going by. And now you have the visual of a red Ferrari going. Those little brush strokes are enough to color in and picture the data point that I'm offering. So in order to convey, if you want your content to stick, you need to add that emotional visual component. Storytelling is the easiest way to do it. If I'm telling a story, it's naturally going to evoke emotions and create pictures in your mind. However, you can use metaphor, analogy, an example, even just a brushstroke, and you'll cause that cognitive connection that comes with emotion.
Okay. Well, let's put this into context then. I'm sure you've got a STEM story that you could explain and brush in some detail with us and use those metaphors.
I was helping a startup founder who had to go and speak in front of the United Nations. He had
Oh,
2 weeks,
wow.
2 weeks to prepare. They wanted him to come and talk on blockchain. Now, I won't use his real name, but we'll call him Greg. Greg had GQ good looks. He had a brain from MIT, and he was not used to communicating in front one to many. And so what we did is we got together and we practiced 3 key tools. First, I taught him how to seed the pass, how to take his content and move it to somebody else's talking point in a way that reconnects that person to their own to his content. Second, I taught him how to redirect. Redirect is where you take whatever question is offered and turn it into your area of expertise. Politicians do this sometimes in a slimy way where it's deflecting, but there's a way to do
The
redirection.
Nixon shuffle.
Yeah, the Nixon. Oh, I like that Nixon shuffle. Um, and then we also taught him how to speak in sound bites, right? people are more prone to remember a soundbite than an entire dialogue, and like they're like sticky notes for your talking points. So he practiced these over the 2 weeks. He got 2 out of 3 really down. When he finished it, he got up on there. He's spoken for the United Nations. He was the most tweeted from the day. He got a headline in an industry rag, and he got a lot of new partnerships that sparked from that conversation as well. So his ability to speak in sound bites, redirect, and see the paths enabled him to take the brushstroke possibility and turn his little talk at the United Nations into a career changing trajectory.
Wow. And what's another one? Like, I'm fascinated by these little snippets of success. So yeah, throw another one our way.
Okay, all right. I work with another. It's CIO. There's CISO and she's a CIO, and she was having trouble getting her team to understand where they were missing things. And she would explain bad data in, bad data out. Like that became like a mantra, and she was going to have mugs made like that. But her team, not her team, but the stakeholders within the organization were not understanding the relevance of and importance of the thing that she was trying to move forward. So she started using analogies. She started pinning everything that she said to a Prius. She drove a Prius. She said, "You all are trying to put gas in my Prius." And when she started using that analogy, and she started breaking down, like you don't put fresh oil in a Prius. When she started like explaining things in the way that people understood, big shifts started to happen, and her career took off. And the kinks within the network, when they were trying to do this change in the network, it all started to move forward with support from the whole team. So metaphors move minds. Using metaphors, analogies help to move your challenges out of the way.
So did she upgrade from the Prius though?
Yeah, I don't actually know what she's driving. Right? Oh, what you mean because she's a CIO now? Um, I know she's a
Has she
diehard.
got to that red Ferrari or?
Oh no. I love that you're taking it all the way together. No, she's a diehard environmentalist. She's not going to
No.
invest in a Ferrari. What about you? What are some clients that you've worked with that like storytelling has really changed the trajectory of their lives?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the beauty of the functional neurology and neuro rehab I've done is I use the example, like why it keeps me just so dedicated or addicted to this field is that you see life come back into people.
Mm,
And that's so hard to explain, because people haven't experienced that right in front of them.
mm,
So I use the opposite approach. What it looks like when things kind of get drained from people,
mm,
and like we've all seen a boxer get knocked out, and we see them like having that athletic presence right in front of us, and then they get hit, and you see like the eyes roll back in their face. You see the coordination change in them, and you see just this blank expression on their face, like this blank void. And well, imagine somebody coming in who's not in an acute situation like that, but the facial expressions aren't there. Their movements are jerky, awkward, or are just always a struggle. And you start to see these come back. And sometimes it can be really quick. And I don't know what that moment is or even what to call it, but when just that timing in the brain and in these pathways that have been injured just switches. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's starting to reprogram right in front of me. And
mm.
it is such an amazing feeling to be witness to and see. And and yeah, you can see it slowly sometimes in people, or really quickly, kind of depending on the condition or what's going on in their brain and nervous system. And I know, like, leaders, they always go for that transformational moment. And usually it's an emotional one, or a hurdle somebody's overcome. And for myself, it's that physical moment where the body and the brain nervous system changes right there. And it is so amazing to be witness to.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you use anchoring as a way to lock that in?
Oh, I can, absolutely. And yeah, all of these, they're great descriptions. And yeah, it would be something to start to show more and more people what it looks like. So uh,
I
that's
would watch
that.
that podcast. That would be
Oh
fun, you
yeah, right.
guys.
And that's the whole purpose of well, getting out here doing speaking, as you said, is to make those moments for people, and to bring them along that journey. And with that being said, um, your journey's continuing all the time, and you're bringing awareness to so many things that are going to help people with their skills and advancing where they want to go. So, how do people find out more about you, and what's next for yourself?
Thank you. I am working on a book right now, Clear and Compelling, and you can go to
Nice.
clearandcompelling.com. Sorry,
Okay.
clearandcompellingplaybook.com. It's meant to be an interactive playbook for people. It has all the
Oh,
frameworks, techniques,
great.
and principles. It'll be out this fall. And yeah, I love working with STEM professionals who really want to turn their introversion or their analytical brain into a way of communicating with their leaders and begin moving their big ideas forward in whatever organization they're in. So I'd welcome anybody to go to clearandcompellingplaybook.com and connect with me. Tell me what's going on, and let's talk about how we can really get you to show up with influence and impact.
Excellent. And I urge everybody to definitely do that. And of course, stay tuned into the next episode of The Hardy Brain, the show that takes athletic, introverted entrepreneurs and leaders and transforms them into ironclad brain performers. Take care.